Welcome to the interview on HR marketing and recruiting executive search. This whole chapter has been written by Franziska Anders, Senior Consultant at iPotentials, and Lawrence Illing, and I will have the interview with Franziska Anders. The structure of the HR topics, as you know, starts with HR marketing and recruiting. Today's interview is about executive search, the last chapter of HR marketing and recruiting. And next week, we will then discuss training and qualification. So I welcome Franziska Anders now to the do's and don'ts section of this lecture. So welcome, Franziska.
Hi, Matthias. Pleasure to meet.
Pleasure to meet you as well. And maybe you say a little bit about yourself before we go into the do's and don'ts.
Yeah, sure. Franziska, my name, as already mentioned, I'm working for iPotentials. iPotentials is a executive search company, and we're specialized for recruiting within the digital field, meaning that we do the classical headhunting, as Matthias earlier mentioned and explained a bit about what we do. And I think one of the most important aspects in the end to really sum up our executive search section is to have a look at the do's and don'ts, and that's what we're going to do now.
Great.
So when you are doing a direct search for a client, a reliable and a long-lasting relationship should always be the focus right from the beginning, meaning that you really and truly understand the company that you are going to hire a candidate for, that you understand the wants and the needs. Because you will realize during a search that this is the most critical aspect, because if a client doesn't trust you, you probably won't be able in the end to hire someone.
Okay, Franziska, what else is important?
I think the trustworthy relationship is not just really important when it comes to working together. It is also really important that you have an understanding of the cultural aspects of the company that you're hiring for. So, because at the end, it's not just the do's or the don'ts or what the candidate has to do. It's about the culture fit into the company. And I think that is, in the end, for us, the culture aspect is one of the most important aspects when it comes to executive search. Then there is another aspect that you should be aware, and that is it's not just you that you are taking a risk, it's also that the client is sometimes one of the biggest risks in the process. What does that mean? Sometimes clients, they do make sure, or they want to make sure that they take a decision really quick. But during the process, you will notice that sometimes a client is a lot slower than you expected them to be. And in the end, that means that a process will take even longer than maybe 6 or 8 weeks. Keeping in mind, at that point, the really good candidates, they are not actively looking most of the time, and that's why you have to be really, really fast in the process. Yeah, and I think last but not least, you should always make sure that you reduce the risk of hiring the wrong executive to a lowest level possible, meaning that you should always be aware or make sure that you have the right person in the right place in a certain amount of time. So if you hire the wrong executive, for example, in a position and you have a client that took a decision really quickly, you really have to consult them if he is the right person that he's looking for, or if he just wants to fill the position. So always make sure that you are aware of everything that needs to be done from the beginning. And I think you should, that is another really, really important aspect.
In the presentation, you a couple of times talked about the cultural fit. Mm-hmm. In your experience, how many of the cases that really were not successful were due to a lack of cultural fit, and how many due to any other type of misfit?
Mm-hmm. I have to say my last placements, or let's say within the last 12 months, they were always cultural fits because I really understood my customer. And that is why we spend a lot of time before we even start with the search for the customer. So in the end, when a search wasn't successful and we weren't able to place someone, it was a mixture of either the position that had to be filled, that there were not enough candidates in the market available. The city or the location of the company was kind of like not as attractive, for example, Berlin versus a small city near Munich, for example. Or if the customer didn't really had the pressure to hire someone. Sometimes they just open a position, but they are not really under pressure. And if you're talking to the wrong person on the customer side, they will never fill the position. So there are a lot of aspects.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. Yeah, and then coming to the don'ts, what you, either as a candidate or a customer, obviously, I'd suggest a couple of things. So in the beginning, before you even hire a company that does executive search for you, you should be aware that not for every position and for every search that you have on the table, you should hire someone who is doing a direct search process. Because in the end, it's always a lot more expensive, but there is another service behind it. And for the outer world, let's say, and I think from a customer perspective, it's always hard to see the difference between executive search and, for example, a matching process. So what I always suggest my customers is that they decide if they have, for example, a crucial function like, for example, a CFO, and that CFO has to know something about a certain market. Then there are obviously not too many CFOs, like 100. There are more or less 30 on the market available. And if we're looking, for example, only in Germany, there is a slighter chance to fill the position with that certain market know-how. When, for example, when you compare a senior marketing manager, there are obviously a lot more marketing managers. So you always better decide right in the beginning what makes sense. If you really need a whole market research and competitor analysis that comes with the direct search most of the time, or if it makes sense to even hire someone who is retainer or contingency based. Contingency based is always success based, meaning they'll have a look in their database and then they'll send you some CVs. If that is okay for you, because we're talking about a junior position, that should be fine. If you have a crucial function, then you should think of an executive search company.
Okay.
Yeah. I mean, the consultant that is helping you during the process, during the negotiation phase on every, let's say, step within the process, talking about executive search, it's always really important that you don't underestimate the importance of the consultant, because he has to earn a lot of trust from both sides, right? They will sell your company on the candidate market. They will convert the candidates for you, and that's why you really need a trustworthy relationship right from the beginning, because then he'll be able to sell the role and he'll be able to get the best candidates for you, for the company. And last but not least, it is, I think from my experience in the last couple of years, what customers keep telling me is, I have a couple of amount of agencies running for the same position. But don't forget that you forfeit your image and the candidate sides. If candidates will be contacted few times, let's say 5 times in 1 week, they'll get a really big quotation mark in their heads, asking themselves, are they that desperate? Why are they not getting candidates? And that's why it's better to hire one agency and to trust that agency that they will really screen the market for you, versus hiring, I don't know, maybe 5 different agencies. So that's, I think, from a candidate perspective, it's even... I think it's one of the most important aspects, because candidates talk to each other, and in the end, your reputation will be screwed up after a year when you hired 5 different agencies and they'll all run out on the market and ask for to join the company, and that obviously lowers their attractiveness. So far, so good. I mean, to sum that up, I think there are even more do's and don'ts. Those are just a few. I think if you want more information and more details, you can always, have a closer look in the summary up front. And if you even more have questions, you can contact us.
Great. Thank you very much, Franziska.
You're welcome, Matthias. Was a pleasure.
Pleasure as well.